I will
Please
share my
introduce yourself,
screen.
who you are.
Yes, all right. So my name is Nathan. I'm one of the three co-founders of the Election Truth Alliance. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that is now dedicated to election security. So since the 2024 election, our jobs have been uh, pursuing and investigating the election. My background specifically, I'm a cybersecurity and data analyst. I've worked for a company that did real-time network monitoring. And I also have a background as a 25 Bravo, which is a computer tech specialist in the Army Reserves, and a signal officer in the Army National Guard. Okay, so what this is a overview PowerPoint that we have created. We will also be publishing two different additional forms of media to support this. One will be a summary and kind of a timeline of the election and our concerns. And the other will be a video with a accredited PhD level statistician talking through some of our more in-depth data. So this PowerPoint is going to cover an overview of some of the issues we're seeing in the 2024 presidential election. And so we are the Election Truth Alliance. We have this beautiful PowerPoint made by some of our really hardworking and dedicated volunteers. So first and foremost, who are we? As I kind of mentioned before, we are a nonpartisan organization. We're run by a board of three people. The background of our volunteers specifically is we have data analysts, we have statisticians, we have cybersecurity individuals. We also have specifically to the board as well, political science, auditing, and fraud detection skill sets. So we were technically founded in December of 2024. I think we're 20 days old as of today. And we were incorporated in January in Nevada. Our current volunteer, we're actually exceeding 20 volunteers currently. And that number is only going to grow in the next coming days because we've had hundreds of people who wanted to volunteer to help us continue to investigate and take our next steps. So as a data-driven team, our whole job here is we want to look at the data. We want to make sure that every eligible voter, when they cast their vote, is it counted correctly or their voice is heard. And so that is our priority, is sharing our analysis, bringing awareness to these problems we're seeing in the 2024 election. And then we are seeking to verify the vote in the counties we're seeing this and the states we're seeing this all across the US. So what we do specifically is our current job now is to analyze the results of the election and represent that data visually and spread it and inform people about any concerns or patterns that we're seeing. Specifically for our analysis after the election and election night, CVR data, which is vote record data, was published by counties. Some counties have not made that available, some have. So for those that have, we were able to download that data from their public websites, their county websites, and begin analyzing it. And so on the right here is an example of one of the locations we have actually published an analysis for, and that's Clark County, Nevada. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing for early voting, the data shows potential manipulation for an algorithmic hack at the tabulation level. So the voting machines or the vote counting machines could have potentially been influenced. And that's what our data is showing there. And so one of the three other things we like to do is, on top of analyzing, we want to communicate this information and spread it, express the technical concerns, reach out to other notable organizations that have been in the election auditing field. We've been doing that as I've coordinated with two different election integrity groups. And then we want to advocate for change and accountability. So that is the most important thing, is as we progress and continue our investigations and we find more data supporting our concerns of potential manipulation in the 2024 presidential election, well, what is our advocacy? How are we going to handle that? And so that's kind of the next step, is we want to make sure everyone's votes were counted. And if they were not, that is a huge deal. That is a civil rights issue, among many other things. So that is our third and most important step, is advocating for positive change and helping coordinate people so that we make sure that this did not occur and people's voices were not silenced. Now, so what prompted our analysis and kind of created the foundation of this organization? So in the 2024 election alone, we saw over 200 bomb threats on election day, particularly in swing states and counties, and in very liberal counties, very Democratic counties. We're also seeing a concern of around 70% of voting equipment could have potentially been compromised between 2020 and 2024. There's been multiple security, multiple duty to warn letters from notable security experts talking about how they question whether our voting systems are being maintained correctly, or if they could have potentially been maliciously accessed. And then, of course, all 7 swing states in this last election was won by one party, all outside of the margin of recount. That is a red flag. That is a concern. And so that's some of the things that have really pushed us into diving deep into the data. And the last thing, and we're actually going to show you an example of this, is all 88 counties that transitioned this election from being predominantly one majority to the other. All 88 counties were won by one party. And it's the same with the swing states. So we'll show that. Here's a representation of those bomb threats we talked about. You'll notice some of their positioning is interesting. We see some of the swing states being Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia as well. So it was interesting that this occurred. It was attributed to Russian email domains, and there wasn't a official investigation from our understanding. This kind of just got hand waved away. They didn't look into this. Over 200 bomb threats, and this is a huge concern for our election security. And our concern here isn't that it occurred or not. It's that where it occurred, many counties and many locations closed down temporarily, and voters were evacuated, and they could have potentially lost their opportunity to vote. And on top of that, it would have disrupted the paper ballot chain of custody, which is very important for investigating if there was manipulation or not. The paper ballots are your ultimate proof of, was this election fair and secure? Then we also have, as we talked about before, concerns about the voting equipment being compromised. There's 2 major types that are common throughout the US. These maps represent them. On the left here is voting machine brand 1, and on the right is voting machine brand 2. And you'll notice that when combined, they generally overlap a majority of the United States. They are the predominant types. And so if you were to compromise both systems, and both of them have security concerns in their own rights, if you were to compromise them maliciously with a hack, you would have the ability to change the outcome of a presidential election. And so what's very concerning as well is we're seeing this clean sweep of the swing states. This is very interesting. Let's say, for example, the Republican candidate won 30 out of 50 states and all 7 swing states. Now, the last time a candidate won all 7 swing states was 1984. That was Ronald Reagan, and he won 49 out of 50 states. So to win all 7 swing states, when that is a little bit of a concern, specifically because we see the margin of victory, 49.8% of the popular vote. So it's interesting to see that you would win all 7 swing states and yet still fall underneath the 50% of the popular vote. Statistically, to achieve that is improbable. It would require only winning in very specific places in those swing states, in the most heavily populated counties, and it just doesn't seem natural for that to occur. That's not an organic thing. So that's our concern, is to pull that off would be ridiculous normally. And so what we're looking at here is we're looking at, out of the 88 flipped states, or 88 flipped counties won in 2024 compared to 2020, you see that every single one of these counties that's changing is red to blue, from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party. Not one county in 2024 changed from Republican to Democrat. Not one. That is also statistically improbable. And for an example of this is 100 years ago in 1932, Roosevelt carried 42 out of 48 states at the time. He had a 57% of the vote, and 0 counties flipped. But I think a better representation is in 1984. Ronald Reagan won 49 out of the 50 states we were talking about, right? All 7 swing states. And even then, even with Ronald Reagan winning all 49 of the 50 states, 30 counties flipped blue for Mondale. So it just seems ridiculous to,
This is beyond shocking. This is
yes, it's improbable for this to
all
occur naturally.
information, even I had no idea about. This is like,
Yep, this would
wow.
not occur naturally. This is a red flag. And so that's kind of our high level overview. We have been publishing and will continue to publish um, data packets on specific counties that we are doing our analysis in. Some of these ones are the most populous counties in the swing states. Clark County, Nevada is one example. We have counties in Wisconsin and a few other places as well that we are wrapping up.
And we've heard about a report that's coming that's going to actually give details of a lot of the granular work. And when can we expect that? And what else are you going to be able to show us? And what are we still not going to be able to know? How close can you get to putting a nail in the coffin in terms of
That's a good
anyone's
question. So,
illusions that we had a free election?
so following up with this overview is we're doing a report that is kind of summarizing the timeline for this election and all of the red flags and concerns, specifically notable statements by people involved in the election saying some things along the lines of "We don't need your votes." We're talking about vote counting machines, and in as well, kind of our process for when we started looking into the data and kind of summarizing that and those findings as well. Also, we will be publishing a video with Elizabeth Clarkson, a notable PhD statistician. She worked at the University of Wichita, I believe, for at least 20 years of her career as one of their chief statisticians. And we actually did an interview with her where we presented her with some of our data for Clark County, Nevada. And she actually had previously filed lawsuits in 2018, I believe, for a similar vote manipulation she was seeing local to her in one of the recent elections then. So strong parallels there with her findings and ours today.
Are you confident that once people know this, that we can reverse this coup and that we can do something about it? Are we doomed now to never have elections again?
I am confident that once everyone's aware of the issues with this election, and as I said, the election truth alliance isn't going to go away. We're not going to stop digging deeper, and we're going to validate if this election was manipulated or not. There's no question. We will get access to the data to do so. And I think, as you said, what can we do, right? Well, our democracy is very clear. Our Constitution is very clear. And so to have infringed our democratic process, there is no greater, threat to our way of life. And so where there are multiple options, I've been in coordination with multiple constitutional lawyers and other civil rights organizations. And ultimately, what it comes down to is we need to connect as a people. We need to coordinate. We need to all, start reaching out and protecting and helping each other.
Yeah.
And then we can move
And
forward.
could you tell us, Nathan, based on your guesstimates, what percentage of people does the Election Truth Alliance believe actually voted for Kamala Harris? And what percentage of Republican voters do you believe voted for Kamala Harris?
So we did an analysis to estimate if the manipulation we're seeing across all of these swing states um, did occur, what would the actual results have been and the reported amounts actually be. And from that analysis we did, it was looking somewhere along the lines of at least five swing states. There's two swing states we couldn't do a full analysis in, so we can't really say yet. But at least five of those swing states, Harris would have won. And
Wow.
the amount of votes she generally she would have had somewhere around the 70% of the popular vote, at least from our estimates.
And how many of Republican voters? I heard a
They
number.
would have had, yeah, they would have had only around the maybe at most 30% or less.
Wow. And finally, your colleague Jive, who's a statistician, I just want to confirm that you tell me if I have the right statistic. He said the likelihood, the probability that Trump could have won those 7 swing states would be akin to him having won Mega Millions legitimately 6 times in a row. Is that correct?
It's actually worse than that because not
What?
only would it be ridiculous to win 7 swing states, but because he did not exceed the popular vote, it's improbable. It would have never happened. So I think it was
So he won
something.
more than 7 Mega Millions in a row.
Yes, it would be. I'll have to get you a good representation, but I think it was the equivalent of flipping a coin more than like 25 times and getting heads every time. It would never
Wow,
occur.
he's so lucky, isn't he?
Indeed.
Well, I know you got work to do and
Yep.
we are
And
getting
here's
this
that. Here's
out.
our final slide as well.
Yes,
So there is
please.
a scan to donate option, and we have our two prominent hashtags that we like to use, and that's hashtag verify the vote and hashtag truth matters, because the truth will set us free, right?
And how are the three of you? No, do you have day jobs? How are you able to sustain this? Do you have a job now?
Currently, I do not. So, yeah, it is a conflict of interest for me to kind of be pursuing election integrity and also represent that company. So, I'm
Wow.
currently suspended. So, this is my job now, uh, and I'm still a
We want to take you out
volunteer.
of volunteer mode and
Yes,
put
we're
some
all
food in your
volunteers.
fridge, gas in your car. Listen, we so appreciate you. The last thing is please do send me a copy of this lovely PowerPoint because we're going to get the video out and the PowerPoint. And we're going to flood your inbox with donations and volunteers, and we're going to be ready when the other materials are ready, hopefully tomorrow, that we're going to take the
Yes.
next step and move forward.
Yep. There's a few things we'll add to this actually, but yeah, that would be excellent.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you from the bottom of our hearts.
No, hey, as I said, and I think the last thing I said is, um, I took an oath to protect and defend not only the Constitution but the American people. And so when the 2024 election occurred, and I started to say, hey, was this fair and free or was it not? I couldn't sit by. I couldn't, go back to doing my day job. I couldn't, let the potential um, horror of what the situation could be lie. And so I said, all right, no one else is going to do anything. No one else is going to step up and ask the hard questions and do the work. I guess I'll do it. And everyone else who stepped up beside me has been amazing. And that's what this organization is all about, is we're the ones that are going to put in the work since no one else wants to. So
Thank you so much. Get some sleep and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
I'll send you some stuff as well, and
Thank you.
I'll update you. Thank you so much.
God bless America.
Have a good night.